they kind of disappear. Their relevance sort of erodes, and I want to change that. I want us to have a conversation about, well, what do you want? My name is Kabir Bhatia. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hello Everyday. Hello Everyday is creating the graceful solution for aging in place safely. We realize that there's a gap in the market where older adults that live by themselves and live independently, but are otherwise seemingly healthy, often have a fear of what if something happens to them? Who would know? Because they often go days or weeks without actually interacting with someone consistently. And so we developed a technology for people that would otherwise never wear a medical alert bracelet or would never wear something that is as invasive as a camera or have a camera in their house. This is something that basically just plugs into a wall outlet. It looks like this. There's no buttons on this. And it looks for activity, and it can communicate that activity to up to 5 people. If some people, 2/3 of our users send a daily text message to their people saying they're okay. About 1/3 of our users say, I only want a message to go out if something is wrong. And so they have the flexibility to target what they want to communicate and how they want to communicate it.
Totally understand the pain point and the opportunity to support people here. Was there something in particular for you personally that inspired you to work on this?
It absolutely was. My dad passed away a couple of years ago. He battled cancer a number of times. And my mom found herself living by herself for the first time in her life. She'd grown up at her parents' house, went directly to when she got married. And it was a very disorienting process for her. There's obviously the initial influx of people calling to check in when the event actually takes place. And then there's this vacuum of like, well, how do we stay connected? What if something happened to me? And even though she lives just a half a mile away from me, I realized that there just wasn't a technology where someone who's healthy, active, but just wants an insurance that, if something happens that somebody know. And so I started thinking about this, and then I couldn't come up with a technology solution, but happily, because I was asking questions, I was introduced to someone well, Dr. Marhil Levitt, who had also been thinking about this, and he had a very personal experience as well, where as a volunteer with one of the villages here in Westland, Lake Oswego called Willow, he offered tech support for them. This is a village of people that live in their own homes, but stay connected. It's peer-to-peer support, social support, as well as tangible tech support like Mark provides. And one of their members, Laura, who was very similar to my mom, very active, very vibrant, athletic, suddenly had a medical event in her home and collapsed on the floor, wasn't found for 3 days, ended up passing away, had a dog, and it was very disturbing. And so Mark pulled together a few of the village members and said, hey, I think we can design something that would prevent future events from happening, or at least where people would know. And so we got together in the summer a couple of years ago, and started the company. We brought the product out to market in May of this past year. We've had 2 saves already. So we've had 2 people who have had medical events. And one of the texts that I got in December was it stopped me in my tracks, because it was somebody who started the text with, your device saved my life. And so it's exactly for that. It provides reassurance every day, but it also acts as that insurance policy if something was to happen. And because it doesn't need the user to do anything, that's really what the benefit is.
Yeah, I love that. I always appreciate when founders kind of come upon a way of using technology that actually helps humanity and improves relationships. So I'm really excited. To shift gears just slightly, like one of my favorite things about getting to talk to founders is they often have the best advice for other founders or people who are considering maybe making this leap into starting a company of their own. From your perspective, what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who has either just started out or is considering starting a company?
It's hard to narrow it down to one piece. As you trust me, I know. As you know, I think building companies is a team sport, and I think finding the team that you are going to eat, live, and pray with every day and day in and day out, and argue and tear apart things, and that's the gist. That is it. It's the people around you. It's having the right team, having someone like Mark Levitt and my co-founder Huang Dong, both of whom are PhDs, super smart, but so committed to what we're doing and so open to tearing everything up and starting over, because it's either not resonating, it's not simple enough, whatever. That is what you need in order to build a company and really sort of climb the mountain that is building companies. I don't think there's any alternative to that.
Yeah, I love that response. The team is so important. And given that you are working on a company that has so many interesting facets to it, so you have not only the technology, but you have a hardware instantiation of that technology. You have a population that may still not be terribly comfortable with technology.
Yep.
Like, is there one resource that you find yourself using on a regular basis that you're kind of like, this is my touchstone, like this book I have to go back to every once in a while, or this is some content that I use, or something that you just as a person do to help survive the turmoil of being a founder? Is there a resource you would recommend for people?
Again, very hard to narrow down to one. Our Bible for the space in which we're operating in, there's a great book called Being Mortal by Dr. Atul Gawande, where he describes the challenges that the medical establishment have with dealing with aging. And the medical world thinks about aging as a series of symptoms that they have to cure. That is not what aging is. Aging is a process. It's a holistic process. And so there's a fundamental disjoint between sort of how we think about this thing that is happening to all of us versus how we treat it. And so one of the things that we constantly have to think about is, how do we think about this as a holistic, and how it fits within people's relationships around themselves and their the way they live. And I probably installed 50 of these personally.
Yep.
Gone into people's homes, talked to them about their stories, etc. And it's made me realize just we as humans are the most complex things there is in the world, even given AI. And it's the navigating that is that's the crux of it, right? Like, it's really learning sort of what the people aspect is.
Yep. Well, Kabir, you've been extremely helpful and also inspirational. Like I'm coming away from this conversation with just like getting energy from you around this. How can we, the folks listening, be most helpful with your pursuit right now?
I think it's be careful what you wish for. I think we have a don't ask, don't tell relationship with people that are aging. And I think people that are aging feel like they just disappear very gradually, but they kind of disappear. Their relevance sort of erodes, and I want to change that. I want us to have a conversation about, well, what do you want, and how do they want to be perceived, and how do they want to think about it? So I think about my personal ask is, have those conversations. They seem awkward at first, but it's so important to sort of have a sense of who our older adults are and how they operate. And I'll tell you, most of my customers, I think of them as my customers, are forces of nature. They have had full lives and they are super strong mentally and they want to continue to live at home. And that sometimes that makes them stubborn. And so it's my job to sort of figure out how to convince them that this is in their best interest, right? So the alternatives are terrible. The alternatives are wearing a medical alert bracelet or or going into an institution. Nobody wants that. We know that. So how do we make sure that people are staying as confidently as they can in their own homes? I mean, that starts with a connection and having a conversation. That is, I think, the crux of what we're dealing with as a society. I think the demographics are clear. By 2030, 1 in 5 people are going to be above the age of 65. The vast majority of them are going to be living alone. It's just and most of them are not going to be able to afford buying a brand new Porsche 911, which is the dollar equivalent of what it costs for living a year in assisted living or independent.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I love about the solution you're pursuing is that it's not a US centric problem. Like the concept of aging in place is impacting any number of nations. And so just this concept is definitely something that's needed.
One caveat though, Rick.
Yeah.
I think the caveat is the US has a very interesting bent on aging. The way we think of ourselves as independent and bootstrappers, which works really well when you are younger, doesn't work when you are aging. We are a social animal and we require interactions with people and we need that connectivity and we need that reliance. And I think that's the crux of why the US is a little bit different as it relates to aging with some of the other countries.
Do you have a startup story to tell? I would love to hear from you.